Well, Sony, what are we gonna do with you? I kind of feel bad for Sony. Our coverage of the Xperia line got crazy out of order, but now that we're back from the excitement and the announcements over the Galaxy Note 7, we're coming back to spend a little time with the Xperia X Performance. This year for Sony really has been an expanding conversation on the lineup of phones that we're going to be playing with. We put out a full review on that sort of midpoint Xperia X, but we held off on a number of things that we wanted to test with their top-of-the-line device, the X Performance, namely our real camera review and those speaker and headphone benchmarks that we've been trying to incorporate in more of our reviews. Along the way, we're really trying to make sure we do our due diligence with this manufacturer. Now, Sony as a brand kind of walked away from the United States. They're kind of limping back into this area of the world with unlocked devices sold directly to consumers, no carrier relationships, to really make sure these things show up on store shelves. As I mentioned in our first impressions video on the X Performance, I was really expecting a few more differences between this and the regular Xperia X. I've been using it for the last couple days and it does feel like a very similar phone. Now, there's a little extra horsepower. We moved from a Qualcomm 652 to a Qualcomm 820, so that's nice, that's progress. The tiny little battery bump has been non-existent in terms of real-world usage. I see no benefits from that in additional runtime during the day. And I was really hoping for an expanded feature set out of this camera. It's a similar camera sensor, but with the extra horsepower from the Qualcomm 820, I was thinking, oh, maybe we'll finally get UHD video or H.265 compression or something that we would really identify with Sony as a camera manufacturer finally making its way into their phones, and no. It's all pretty much the same experience there too. You max out at 1080p 60 frames per second for video. You've got that 23 megapixel sensor, but it's really designed to pump out 8 megapixel downsampled images to really kind of mess with the exposure and noise reduction and the filtering that goes into producing a nice crisp image. And you get great shots out of it, but that doesn't feel like you're really getting everything that Xperia brand, that Sony brand can bring to the table. In the past, we've been able to celebrate the fit and finish of Sony devices, and I just don't have that same kind of love for the Xperia X that I had for the Xperia Z line of phones that came before it. I mean, sure, it's an attractive device. I think Sony's style is on point. I love this sort of monolith slab of device. It's very angular, it's very sharp, it's very precise, and it is this brushed metal exterior. I think it looks cool. It feels nice in the hand, like so many other YouTubers have generically commented on a number of phones that have come out recently. But I don't feel like there's that same attention to detail that we've seen on previous Sony devices. There's a little bowing on the side panel here by the SIM card tray. A SIM card tray, mind you, which the second you pull it out, because there's no pin tool door, you just stick a thumbnail in there, the phone automatically reboots, which is really frustrating if you have to swap cards back and forth. I'd love to be able to hot swap a SIM card on a Sony phone. But the bowing here does actually pull out with the SIM card tray. That's a bit uncommon for a Sony, and we would expect a higher level of quality assurance in the manufacturing on a phone which is priced to go up against top-tier Android manufacturers from around the world. And just generally, with my tiny little hobbit hands, I do like going back to a 5-inch screen, but the way that the borders and corners and angles are sort of shaped on this phone, it doesn't really feel any smaller in the hand than when I'm trying to go one-handed with a Galaxy S7, for example. I think I have about the same quality of reach, even with my little stumpy thumb here. That's ultimately where I end up in something of a gadget fan quandary. Like, I really want to like this phone. I really want to like what Sony brings to the table, especially the success they've had with the PlayStation brand. Their line of mirrorless cameras is phenomenal, and I think they are putting out some really attractive phones, but phones that are struggling to compete with the other devices out there in the ecosystem, especially at the price points that Sony's commanding. With every device, we want to find that one unique hook that the manufacturer can supply, that they can do better than anybody else. And you would think it would be camera tech, that every phone out there has a Sony sensor in it, and Sony's own products don't seem to benefit from that manufacturing prowess. But that leaves me with a question for you out there in the audience. Now, normally for a real camera review, we shoot at the highest possible video quality from the phone, and then try and mix that up with a UHD or 4K quality video that gets blasted out to YouTube. So this phone maxes out at 1080p at 60 frames per second. So I'm throwing it out there to the audience and how we should wrap up the real camera review for the Sony Xperia X Performance. Should we shoot 1080p at 60 frames per second and put up a video at 1080p 60 frames per second? Or should we maybe scale that back to 1080p at 30 frames per second, knowing that the video quality is probably not going to be radically different there, and then upload a UHD quality video so that you can see better the photo quality coming from these 8 megapixel downsampled images off of the 23 megapixel camera sensor? I have a little viewer poll that just slid out on the top of this video. Vote in that. I'm going to look over the next couple days, see what you guys say, and that's how we'll finish up the real camera review for the Sony Xperia X Performance. We'll have more to report on the Xperia X Performance soon, so be on the lookout for that. We've got some comparisons that are going to come out alongside the full review and the real camera review. As always, thanks so much for watching. Be sure to subscribe to this channel for more fun tech diary video entries like these. We're trying to mix it up a little, have a little fun with how we talk about our gadget feelings. For Pocket Now, I'm Juan Carlos Bagnell. You can catch me on Twitter and Instagram as Some Gadget Guy, and I will catch you all on the next video.